Welcome to Street Scene Power Hour. I see Bob just connected with us, and we have a packed show for you today. If you're listening, make sure you listen to Buzzsprout, download our podcast, or head down to Armstrong Neighborhood Channel YouTube. We have the infamous Rick Guerrera. And look at that, Larry Ward's coming in, and he's joining us as well. And we want to get started real quick. We're going to, we've got special guests from the Ohio State Patrol to answer
Ohio's finest.
Yes.
Yep.
Sergeant Santiago, give us a wave there, and Sergeant Nemastil. Did I get right? Because,
you got it.
You know why? Because, you know, it's normally I screw up names, and Rick gets on my case about it.
Well, you did screw up. It's Santiago, right? Isn't it, Sarge?
You got it.
See?
Yep, see?
You did screw it up. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Street Scene Power Hour podcast.
Yep, and I'm trying to ask Larry to unmute his microphone here. Let me ask again, unmute your microphone, Larry. We do have Larry Ward with us as well, our other co-host.
Quick question for you. Do you see Bob?
I see Bob. I want to hear Bob.
Hello.
See, we got Bob too.
Hi, Bob.
Real quick, Larry, let's introduce Bob, but we got to get back to the sergeants here for a few questions before they have to run out and actually do their job for us. So,
yeah, I'd like to introduce a good friend, long-time good friend, 250,000 miles under his belt, Bob Schoenfeld, right here in Canfield, Ohio.
yeah.
A very prominent family in Canfield, and Bob is retired, but at one time he was one of the top craftsmen as far as a woodworker. He used to work for guys that big build hotels in Japan and stuff like that. So
Right.
we'll get
All
to
right,
Bob.
Yeah, hang in there, Bob. We got like over half a show with you, so we want to get to the Sergeant Santiago and Sergeant Nemastil with us because they are busy, and it's a busy time of year. It's always a busy time of year for the Ohio State Patrol protecting us. And Rick, we have a whole bunch of questions.
As long as I don't see him in my rear view mirror, I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, that's because you speed all the time, Rick.
Not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I do that. I got to.
And you got your tree up already.
Jeez.
My girlfriend.
Yeah, Rick, you didn't do any work putting that tree up, did you?
Nothing. Nope,
I
she does it
know.
all. Hey guys.
Wow.
Hey Sergeant.
Hold on.
Let me throw some questions at you guys, okay? I see these guys, especially in Ohio, driving around, and they got their exhausts as loud as can be, straight exhaust. Is that legal?
So with the exhaust, there's a couple things with it. So the way the law reads here for the exhaust, if you're driving 35 miles an hour or under, your maximum noise limit is 70 decibels. Driving more than 35, then you have a maximum level of 79 decibels. The cars are supposed to be equipped with mufflers with baffles. Essentially, they just can't be straight piped all the way through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like I'm seeing it more and more anymore, so.
That law doesn't make sense, and I'll tell you why. A guy with a manual shift car could be going and then shove it up into fifth gear and just purr along. But the first time he drops it down into second gear and lays into it, now it's 92 or 105 decibels. Doesn't that, you get me what I'm saying?
And that's just the Ohio Administrative Code, Ohio Revised Code. So you may have local jurisdictions that may have something that's a little more strict.
Yeah.
So this is just what they're guided by at minimum. So you may have certain communities that may be a little more strict on what those noise restrictions are that are affected by the exhaust system of the car. That could be.
I've noticed an awful lot of the younger guys. A lot of these cars, man. I mean, they're starting to hurt my ears. I mean, I can't believe how loud they
Great
are.
headers, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a good example too is like if you come into like a local community and you'll see signs right there. It says like no Jake brake. I know we're talking about.
What is a Jake brake? What is a Jake brake?
What the?
What's a Jake brake?
Diesel truck. It opens up the exhaust valve.
In the engine to make it stop.
Yeah. Sergeant Nemastil, keep keep going, answer that question, because you know, we do have signs in like Canfield. I've seen no use of Jake brakes in that.
Yep.
Yeah, I never knew what that was or is.
Yeah, like Santiago was just saying, some of the jurisdictions that might have more strict levels compared to what like the administrative code says for the state of Ohio. And, for example, like if you're coming into the city of Medina, there might be a sign that says, hey, no Jake brake here, and if you're not familiar with Jake brake, that's on a commercial vehicle, that's actually something on the engine that'll actually slow the semi down without actually applying their brakes themselves. And when it goes into effect, it's really, really loud.
Like a compression release or something, huh? Is that what it is? I had one of those on my motorcycle at one time.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
I happen to know somebody that's got a straight exhaust, and I'm not going to say names. My son.
Not me. Your son.
I know. He, a lot of the generation now, I mean, when we were growing up, it was glass packs and stuff that you had a muffler, but I know a lot of his friends have it's a two-step and it throws fire out of the exhaust. I'm like, you can't do that, correct?
You cannot. Yeah, you cannot have fire coming out of your exhaust and two steps.
Not roadway, or
Right.
even some of the laws and the administrative codes even make reference to like parking lots or anywhere where the public is going to travel.
Okay.
So if it's some sort of private, area or raceway that's designed specifically for that, those rules, don't necessarily apply the same way. But if it's just a public parking lot or a traveled roadway, so you definitely can't.
Okay. Rick,
That's pretty cool.
You got more, I know it.
Oh, I got a bunch of them. Yeah. Okay, let's go with lifted suspensions. Okay. How high is too high for the street? Do you have
Right.
a limit on that?
So there is, and it actually goes by weight. So passenger cars and pickup trucks, we would measure from the bottom of the frame to the ground.
Oh, the
So-
frame, not the bumper? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
The bumpers, most of them are attached to the frame anyways.
Yeah.
So the way the law reads is it's the bottom of the frame to the ground, and it can't exceed 22 inches.
22 inches.
22 inches. And then you can actually get into vehicles that weigh greater than 4,500 pounds and all the way up to commercial vehicles. And the height actually varies then. But as far as pickup trucks, cars, stuff like that, you see most of the time it's 22 from the bottom of the frame to the ground.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, how complete opposite now? How low is too low? Is there such a thing as too low?
So if it's dragging on the ground, that's too
Mhm.
low.
Yeah,
That's too low.
that rip exhausts off. We know that. Yeah. Then you get stuck parts on the streets,
Because basically you can't let anything drag on the ground. So no body panels, no gas tanks. That's the thing is gas tanks. Once they get that low, now you're talking about possibly rupturing, your oil pan or your gas tank and leaking fluids. But no body panels, nothing, no frame, nothing can touch the ground. So you see a lot of aftermarket car companies with like those air ride suspensions. You'll see them at the car show. They call it slammed. They're slammed off the ground and in the show. And as soon as they leave, they raise them up off the ground.
Yeah.
it's safer for the car, for the driver, and if you have an air ride suspension, sit and park it, drop it right on the ground. As soon as you
guys are it sounds like you guys are into motorcycles too. So with that being said, you wouldn't want to hit any type of oil or anything like that. So kind of why it's.
I got a quick question for you. This was brought up. It seems like that, on the truck scene, a lot of them, used to have the styles have changed over the years. You used to have the big balloon tires and the mudders and that. Now this generation's running the wide rims, these rubber band tires, and they're sticking this far out, sticking a foot out from the vehicle. Yeah, I know when I lived in Pennsylvania, you used to have at least a bushwhacker or some type of fender flare that was the same width as the tire. Does that
Correct.
still apply to this? Because I see a lot of trucks running around, these wide tires that stick, 6 feet from the truck. Does that still apply?
You need the mud flap at minimum when you start
Okay.
changing.
So
That's-
would you,
It's a similar rule or regulation for like a commercial vehicle. Once you start getting into those very tire widths, that's when the mud flaps at minimum apply.
okay, because so with these people, the custom trucks driving around with these wide rims and that, they could possibly get fined for that. Is that correct?
It could turn into at minimum a traffic stop, and
Okay.
for having that without the mud flap on, for sure.
Okay, that's news to me because I didn't know where the law stood with that. Because I see a lot of trucks doing that, and I guess that law still stands. Okay.
Okay,
Rick?
here's one that bugs me and bugs a lot of people. Those LED headlights, those colored ones, and even just LED, they're so bright anymore. Is there something too bright? Sometimes you think these guys got their bright lights on, and they're not. They just got those LED lights. And is there a law against that?
If memory serves me correctly, I think it's anything beyond, was it 3,000?
Mhm.
3,000 lumens. You
Okay.
definitely anything other than the white or the amber in the front. So
Okay.
a lot of we see cars from time to time that have a colored bulb in the front.
Yeah, that was my next question. Yeah.
For a while there, we were
Mhm.
especially first changed over. We were starting to see some of the kids that were changing the different lights, the parking lights that were in the front, or doing a combination. They were saying, but my car is still equipped with a white light in the front. It's just not the only light.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
that can't do that either.
Yeah.
Especially when you start to get into, nothing can get you stopped quicker than a red or a blue
Mhm.
front headlight, because that confuses the motoring public. If you have someone approach with a red or a blue headlight or combination,
oh.
you're almost presenting yourself as a public service vehicle, and
Yeah.
that's not good. So that's why that's an effect. And so basically, it's white and amber. That's all you can do.
Okay. So it brings up another question about, I'm sorry to jump on you, Rick. My brain's starting to
Good,
flow
good.
all these
Just go.
questions that I could answer. Lighting, there's light bars. I see trucks coming down the road with light bars. There's off-road lightings. That is totally illegal everywhere on the highway, correct?
And neon lights and all that. Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about the bars that are on the top,
Oh, geez, those are super bright.
They just can't be brighter than like what Sarge was saying here, like the 3,000 lumens.
And 3,000 lumens, again, I'm all into the lighting stuff. 3,000 lumens is pretty much a standard 55-watt bulb, correct, on a headlight bulb.
Yep. And then as far as neons go, I heard somebody say neons. They just all say it, or they can't flash. If you have you see a lot of those like raised pickup trucks with the or even the sports cars with the underglow lighting. If it's was it 300 kilowatt?
yes.
It can't be brighter than a 300 kilowatt power that's illuminating onto the ground. It just can't flash. Sometimes you even see them where they're synced to the music in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They can't, like Sarge was saying, you can't have anything that's red or blue flashing. If it's on, it's under 300 kilowatt power for the neons, that's fine. But it can't flash either.
Yeah, and the other thing that folks should really remember is it can't be any sort of directional either. If it's going to be on the undercarriage and just illuminating the ground beneath, you're fine. Again, if it's not oscillating or flashing. Once you start to get into some of the lights that are, directionally facing other than directly down, that's when you again start to get to a violation of the requirements.
Okay,
I
because
have
I
a
know.
quick question.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead, Larry.
I'd like to talk about what I think is the number one cause of accidents and also death, which is distracted driving, in particular the use of cell phones. I want to commend Canfield the city of Campfield for their ordinance that that actually does something about people doing distracted driving with their cell phones. What, especially with the holidays coming up, and we'd mentioned it on a show earlier today. You know, it's so irritating. I mean, you can be in a drive-through and somebody's like 4 cars away from where they should be because they're fooling around with their cell phone. I'd like to know what type of enforcement, I mean, are you guys out there doing? Because, you know, we just recently lost a motorcyclist due to someone's distracted driving. And of course, the punishment wasn't fitting the crime. It was a smack on the hand and a couple $100 fine, and you got a dead motorcyclist. So I know there's different rules involving different things pertaining to the cell phone usage and distracted driving, but what is the Highway Patrol, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, what is their policy on that, and how do they enforce it?
Well, right now, distracted driving in the state of Ohio is a secondary offense, meaning we have to observe another traffic offense before we can conduct a traffic stop. So typically you'll have someone that does something like sit at a green light for too long, which is a violation of law, or a marked lanes violation, or in the cases of crashes, what we see is like a failure to yield, failure to maintain assured clear distance. I can tell you that we're very vigilant. There's recent traffic stops. Obviously, we have to keep up with times and try to, you know, be more effective in these things. So you make traffic stops begin with a trooper observing a marked lanes violation, let's say, and the dash cam footage then shows the trooper pulling next to the vehicle and getting in that blind spot to see what's going on in the car prior to making that traffic stop. It's for that very reason. It's to see if there's a distraction going on in the vehicle. This is easier to enforce at night because there's obviously a glow coming from a phone that's flashing at someone's face. But I can tell you we're very aggressive in enforcing this because it's continuing to not be a trend, but one of our top contributing circumstances in traffic crashes. Right now, there is some legislation that's going through that they're trying to get it pushed through to make it a primary offense, meaning if we simply observe someone using their handheld device, we can make that traffic stop without having another violation occurring. But just to give you an idea, this year alone, I just literally, as you were speaking, pulled up some numbers. Year to date, we're at over 8,200 citations that have been issued by troopers throughout the state. Right now, if we look at the map, right now, Cuyahoga County leads that, is the county that has the most distracted driving crashes since 2020. So we take it very serious. We're taking a very data-driven approach to how we kind of enforce this and how we go over it. But we always, that's why programs such as what you folks are doing and you giving us the opportunity are so valuable, because we always want to make things relevant through increased awareness, raised education, rather than through tragedy. So no one wants a door from a trooper to let them know that a loved one isn't coming home. So we much rather sit here and talk, some shop with you folks, rather than, having to knock on one of your doors and having a conversation that way.
Yep.
Quick follow-up question, and then I'll back off, is, and this is more of a personal observation from you folks, not a policy from the Ohio State Highway Patrol, but I have long wondered, we can put people on the moon, and maybe Elon Musk will do this. If a car is going
He's too busy.
10 miles an hour, other than the GPS function or the 911 function, why can't we shut off those phones until they're either stopped or they're pulled off to the side? Anything that's a safe kind of thing. What's your, just asking for a personal opinion, do you think we'll ever be able to get something like that done? Or do you think this whole thing, the mindset with the public having to be on the phones all the time is something too much to overcome?
Well, I can tell you that technology already exists. I know that.
Sure.
When my son was in a vehicle with a friend, and I tried to text him, and I immediately got a response back from his phone that the the phone, his ability to respond was turned off by the vehicle he was in.
Nice.
It was because the parents of the car whose he was in, that car had the ability to disable that. So I know it does exist, and folks do use it, specifically for drivers, which is amazing and it's great. Will we ever get to a point where it's mandatory? Wishful thinking, I doubt it. I think we're just at a point where we need to just continue to raise awareness, increase education, and if we have to turn on our blue lights, we will.
Mhm.
A lot better than having to knock at the door, in the middle of the night.
Got a question for you. Things have, times always change, and being a patrol officer is the hardest, if not one of the hardest, if not the hardest job in the world to do.
Yep.
That, our safety forces are number one. What has changed over the, say, 20 years? How have things changed as far as driving habits and what you've had to deal with as far as, being on the road?
Technology is a big component. Folks can do so much more just sitting stationary with their phones and their devices than ever before. So allowing just the distractions of life to get in the way often, is a contributing circumstance. I think what we've kind of gotten away from, and I think is something that we just need to constantly hammer home, is we take the act of driving for granted. We do. Yes. We worry about so many other things in life as being quote unquote dangerous. And we neglect to put into perspective how dangerous driving is and how much attention it takes and what we're doing physiologically when we're driving. Like the multitasking that's occurring when you're behind the wheel is mind blowing when you really wrap your head around it. So when we take that for granted and we just jump in and out of the car and we go here, there, and everywhere else, take a moment to really stop and think. And I know it sounds hokey, but stop and think about everything that you were doing while you were behind the wheel of the car at the speeds you were traveling in with other moving, objects around you, traveling at those same speeds, and how much trust that takes in each other to do the right thing so that we can get to where we're going.
Add on to try to think on the flip side of it too now. We talked about technology. Look at the cars that are being produced now to the public. I mean, you have Teslas, you have cars that are electric, you have cars with the assistance of blind spot mirror, the things that flash in the mirror up next to you. So essentially, in backing up, like my wife, she can't back up without her camera, on the and I'm like, and it drives me nuts, right?
Yeah.
And to parallel park, good luck, now you have cars can actually parallel park for you. You have pickup trucks. Talk about pickup trucks. You have pickup trucks that can actually back a trailer up now using GPS.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
New 3/4 ton pickup trucks, you can actually back it up. You can tell it where you want the trailer, and the truck will do the work for you. Wow. So it takes the responsibility of the driver, and it gives them an opportunity to focus on other stuff like cell phones and things that don't pertain to the actual driving of the vehicle, So I would say there's a flip side to it. The vehicles that are coming out, it almost lets the driver become, I don't know if lazy is the right word to use, but not aware of their actual surroundings because the vehicle's doing the work for them.
It almost takes a skill away from driving, doesn't it? I mean, I see these, and what drives me crazy is going down the highway. And I was in a rainstorm from heck this morning, coming up from Cranberry, PA, from our another office of ours. And the first thing I did was turn the headlights on, but I can't tell you how many people don't, because some of these sensors in the cars can't decipher between day and night and rain driving and stuff. And they don't physically turn their headlights on because I don't even think they think about it.
It's
to make the drivers dumber.
I'm pretty sure it's a law that you have to have your headlights and your wipers on during rain in Ohio.
Yeah.
But you guys would know.
the safety lights, right? Aren't you supposed to drive with safety lights all the time?
When there's rain, anytime there's precipitation and
Mhm.
you turning on your windshield wipers, you should have your head
Okay.
fast rule. I get, to summarize all of this though, what you're really battling is complacency. We just can't become complacent with, just jumping in our vehicle and taking for granted the fact that what we're doing is very dangerous. It's something that we should take serious, and it's a privilege.
Okay. Rick, I'm going to give you one more question because I know these guys have a job to do. So I want to let them go. And
I got a bunch more. I keep talking and I keep thinking of something. Here's one for you. It drives me crazy. Left lane driving. Is there any law against it? Say you're on a 55-mile-an-hour road, and the next thing you know, you're in the left lane. This guy's going 50 miles an hour. It drives me crazy. I don't know. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Good.
So unfortunately, unless it's impeding traffic to the point where
Yeah.
that hindrance is causing another hazard, there's nothing against the law.
Mhm.
So we have to really think about what we're complaining about at times, because yes, we know that that's the passing lane, but if someone's doing 65 in a 65 in that left lane, they're not really breaking a law. They're just kind of annoying everybody.
Yeah, sure is. Sure does annoy me. I got two quick questions. Okay. Quick ones. Yeah. Okay. How fast will those state patrol cars go?
Well, the speedometer says 140,
140,
160.
160. You trust yourself going that fast? I know you got driving schools and all that.
I will tell you this. The situation has to be very serious. The severity of the responding to definitely dictates how fast we're going. If we're looking for a funny little anecdote or story, and you want something that's you're not, the fastest I've ever been, and this is probably not, Columbus probably gonna be too happy. It was in response to an officer distress call. So we're all running as fast as we possibly could, as safe as we could. The conditions were at night. I was on the turnpike, and I did hit 140. It is not. You feel every little bump, and you're running on in the light bar. It's really loud. But when you're trying to get to someone that's in distress, we do what we have to do. We are trained. The reason I have Sergeant Nemastil here with me is he's one of our driving instructors.
Oh, okay,
and
good.
he also races on his personal. So I figured that he was going to start talking shop with you guys, and I was going to be the odd man out, and he's one of the cool kids. Although, Rick, I have a question for you. I'm a little worried that, do you have the right tree back? I thought you would have a different tree, being that you guys are all car guys, and there's not
I'm at my girlfriend's house, and she decorates all the time.
Yeah, we usually hang Matchbox cars up, or car
Well, we're not
parts.
all car guys.
Here's one other quick question for you guys. What was the fastest you ever clocked somebody?
Fast somebody was 137.
Okay.
137. Okay.
Now, when you caught him, did you tow the car or bike?
You didn't ask if I caught the guy.
Is it one of those where you look clock and it's it's something oh, I don't know. I don't even know. You can't outrun a radio.
Well, here's the thing, and the one officer that races, he'll understand. But especially when you're not used to being in those high speeds, you could go to driving school. I used to race motorcycles. I still get on the track every once in a while. But there's a couple of things: the closing ratio, how fast you're closing. You don't get used to that until you do it a lot. And when you're up around 140, like you said, things happen real fast, and you got to make split-second decisions. And it's a tough road to hoe. So, I hope that guy that was doing 137 had a road racing license or something,
Before we let you guys go, is that the body armor you're wearing? Is that very uncomfortable?
After 8 hours, yes, you want to get.
Yeah.
Yes, I see Sergeant wearing it there. I was just wondering
Oh,
how
sure.
uncomfortable. Oh, both you guys got it on?
Oh, yeah.
You have to wear it? Is that mandatory?
I wouldn't, it's just one of the, it's our tool. It's something, so
Mhm.
every tool that they have to wear, and this is a part of our uniform and something that I won't leave home without. I have a
Mhm.
family.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. My oldest son is in ATF. He's in the interdiction enforcement end of it. And, as an undercover, he's not always wearing that stuff and that, but when he's out doing other stuff where he's visible as a regular officer, then he does. But I commend you guys, and certainly for the holidays now, you want to come home to your families. Please take all precautions and stay safe.
Let me interrupt real quick. I got to ask you, Sergeant Nemastil, what do you race? I mean, we're car guys too. So.
Okay, no, I've raced pretty much everything, but I race a Chevy Corvette now.
Ooh,
And
there you go, Larry. Larry's a Corvette guy.
Yeah, I got a Corvette.
I do a lot of autocross. It's all set up for the track. I'm actually an instructor at Mid-Ohio myself, and I'm always at the tracks. I'm at autocross. My family, my father's side of the family is in with it with me too. So I have a grandfather who's actually 90, who actually still races with us with a Volkswagen. So
I'll tell you what, Mid-Ohio's, now I've never autocrossed there, but I've road raced motorcycles, and that is a very
beautiful
difficult
course.
track. You've got to
Mhm.
pay attention. There's a couple of decreasing radiuses, and probably hit 155 down the straightaway, but that's a tough track. And they got a lot of room for autocross. I autocrossed over at Pittsburgh International Raceway. What year is your Corvette? How do you have it set up?
it's a 2002, and I have heads cam, suspension,
Oh,
exhaust.
you get into big money on those things when they're starting to get a little newer. I like the old C4s. They're still pretty easy to work on. And in particular, I've gone through maybe 5 or 6 of them, and I'm back to the original 84, but it's a Z51 car. But, the electronics are very rudimentary, pretty easy to solve things. It's got the old crossfire, which I enjoy because it's a lot like setting carbs on a motorcycle. So, yeah, but maybe I'll catch up with you sometime, and we'll spin a few tires. That'd be good.
Well, according to his last story, he ain't going to catch up with you. So
Sergeant Santiago, I got to ask you your hobbies. What do you like to do on the side?
other than just work, unfortunately, family keeps me busy. My one nerdy vice is, collecting sports memorabilia and old baseball cards.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
I know they have a job to do. I just want to say, we want to have you back. There's a million questions. We want to invite, please, if you've got questions for the Ohio State Patrol, please email Armstrong Street Scene at gmail.com. Send your questions. I will get them to these guys and get you an answer. We want to thank you guys. I have one last question. I'm sorry to keep you guys. You guys are so interesting.
Yeah, we could keep you the whole hour at least.
Sergeant Santiago, dream machine, what is it? I ask everybody this question. Dream car, dream motorcycle, what do you got?
67 Mustang convertible.
Nice, yes, okay. Sergeant Nemastil, dream machine.
Porsche 911 GT3.
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah.
boy, big
Well, this
bucks
guy
out
knows his
there.
stuff, man.
Yeah, see?
That's a
I'll tell you
big
what,
dream machine.
That's pretty good. I'll tell you what, we're going to have maybe in February out at the Campfield Fairgrounds at that new $1 million building. We're going to have one of the world's renowned tire experts, TJ Tennant, former global chief engineer for Bridgestone Tires. And certainly we'd like to have Greg work through you guys, and we'd love to have you come out on the
We'd
panel.
love to have,
We're going to have people from all walks of the tire life, guys that install tires, commercial tires, truck tires, passenger car tires, trailer tires. So we think it would be very important and instrumental to have someone from the Ohio State Highway Patrol there, maybe to sit in, lend some thoughts, because you guys certainly see your share of blown out tires. I get amazed when I go down south and I see the number of people that either have flats on their cars, or more importantly, flats on their boat trailers. And then you stop to help them, and you can see that either the tire was underinflated or the tire had hardly any tread on it. It's just an accident waiting to happen. So I think you guys could lend a whole lot to that conversation.
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys out there, even just to attend. So, yep.
Information. So, like, shoot me an email or text as you've been. And if you start to get questions in where folks have additional stuff they want to know, we have no problem maybe doing this on a somewhat regular basis.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Again, I appreciate the opportunity, not just and discuss things, but to, again, raise awareness, increase education, so things become relevant. And it's not always, we don't always get the opportunity to reach the same folks that you are, and you have their attention on a regular basis. Otherwise, your show wouldn't exist. So I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for it.
You guys are always welcome back. I want to remind our public that, Sergeant Santiago, Sergeant Nemastil, and all the Ohio State Patrol are family people, and they're people like us. And you see them, you thank them for their service, because they work very, very hard to keep you safe, if you're in trouble, who are you going to call? You're calling the Ohio State Patrol, and they're going to come right to your rescue to help you. Right. And they're there to help you. So, thank your fellow officer for their line of service. We want to thank you guys for all you do for us. And we want to have you back on the show, because we're going to have a lot of questions. So we'd love to welcome you back at some point.
Officer Nemastil, I'd like to leave you with just 2 words: Opti Spark.
What is it?
Opti Spark.
Opti.
Yeah, that's your distributor under the water pump.
Oh God. Well, we can get into that, and
I've had my share of those. I'll tell you that.
We can get into the North Star engine that I used to have, that I had to change a damn starter that's under the intake manifold.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to go there. You guys are more than welcome to stay with us. We didn't want to keep you because you guys actually have work to do. So, but you're welcome to stay on. You're welcome to jump off. But we're going to get to our other guest, Bob.
Thanks, guys, for being on the show.
Yeah, and stay safe out there.
Yes.
For sure.
Again, I want to remind people, if they have questions for the Ohio State Patrol about anything of car related like that, please send them to armstrongstreetscene@gmail.com. I look at that personally. I look at that address, the email address, all the time for questions. So please send them there. I will get them to Sergeant Santiago, Sergeant Nemastil personally, and we'll get those answered for you. We'll have them back. We'll get a list of questions. We'll have them back on and answer them live. So
awesome.
Larry.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Bob Schoenfeld, a longtime motorcyclist, longtime friend to the Armstrong Street Scene Power Hour. Bob, thanks so much for coming on the show. And I know you've gotten some things to do and stuff earlier, so I really appreciate you jumping in here and helping us out with the show.
Thanks, Bob.
I've never done this before, so you got to bear with me, I guess.
No, it's just a big conversation. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, to take a little bit of background, I've known Bob for maybe 20 years, and Bob's gone from coast to coast from here. Also, he's ridden in Europe and that. So, Bob, a little bit about how you got started in motorcycling, and we'll go on from there.
Well, I tell you, I used to work for a company that shipped me from big city to big city, and I was walking down the street in San Francisco one day, and I saw a BMW K75 chainsaw, and I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I just decided I was going to start looking for a K75, and I found one in Tucson, Arizona, and I bought the darn thing in 1988, and I've been riding ever since. So
yeah, and then now one of the things about you is that you're retired, you're single, so you have a lot of opportunity to travel. So let's talk about, in just the last 2 or 3 years, some of the places that you've traveled to and some of the things that you've done.
Well, I'll tell you, I really wasn't affected by the COVID. We rode, it's almost, the COVID really didn't affect us. We went as we pleased, and, it's pretty safe running around on a motorcycle because most of the time we're camping at campgrounds, setting up our tent. You go to a hotel, I'm with people that I can trust, and so I more or less rode normally the last 2 or 3 years, and the only thing that was different was the MOA, which is Motorcycle Riders of or Motorcycle Owners of America, usually has a rally every year. Well, they postponed one of the rallies because of the COVID. So that was probably, it affected my mileage that year. But everything was pretty much normal.
Yeah.
How many miles do you think you travel on an average year on a motorcycle?
Well, I was doing 19,000. The biggest year I ever had was 26,000. And I still had a job then. These days I only go about 19. I go down to Florida in the winter, so I put about 4,000 miles when I'm in Florida, and then I put 14, 15 around in the summertime.
A lot of people, when you think about Florida, especially if you're motorcyclists, you don't think about Florida unless it's Daytona Bike Week, because it's pretty flat. I mean, a curve there would be something that about as high as our curve out there. So, but I know that you've had some memorable rides going to Key West and that. Can you share any of them with us?
Well, the funny thing about Florida is they have rides that go to the highest point in Florida, and that's actually a trash. It's actually a trash dump. Mountains that they actually build out of trash, and it's the highest point in Florida. So that's kind of a funny fact. Key West is a fun ride down. It's wonderful to ride down there. You can take back roads and miss Miami most of the way. It's wonderful to get down in the Keys and go across the bridges and have blue water on both sides of you, and get down into Big Pine Key, where the key deer are. They're a type of deer no bigger than a small dog. Very, very tiny deer. They're called key deer. And Key West is a cool place.
The sun sets down there, Bob, when you're out. And I was thinking, is that Trafalgar Square? Is that what they call that? Mallory, that's right. Yes. And boy, you talk about some zany stuff, man. I remember going up to the Garden of Eden, and go all the way up on top of this building, and you're in a bar and you're looking at the women and they're body painted. That's all I got on is body painted. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's fun.
That bar. I know what bar you're talking about, but it's a funky bar. It's 3 stories. Yeah.
Well, one of my bucket list rides, Bob, and I think I might start on the 24th and be gone for maybe 30 days, 24th of April, my birthday. I was thinking about going out to ride the Pacific Coast Highway. And then, and I thought, I know you've been out there so many times, you're probably like a second citizen out there. Tell us a little bit about how cool it is to get out riding through the Rockies and then on out to California now.
I had the luxury. I worked for a company that, like I said, I used to work on some of the biggest millwork projects in the country. We used to build big hotels like Ritz-Carltons all over the country. And so I was stationed out of Colorado Springs, but I worked in every major city in the United States at one time or another: Los Angeles, San Francisco. It's San Francisco and north is the best part of the Pacific Coast Highway. Yeah, it's fun to go down from like Point Magoo down to San Diego, but it's all very busy and it's congested. But you go from like Point Magoo north up to San Francisco, get around to go across the Golden Gate Bridge and north. It's beautiful up there. It's wonderful. Get up in the big trees, and there's a lot of places where you can go primitive camping. California and a lot of those states have primitive camping where all they do is supply a spot. I don't even think they have water there. They have a toilet and a camping place, and you can camp for free there. Pretty cool.
Wow.
And there's actually one in San Simeon, which is right on the ocean. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was one of the few people at this campground one night, and it started to get dark, and this big RV pulls in. And there's signs all over the place: no generators after 10 o'clock. So I'm sitting there, and this guy pulls in. I swear he was less than 50 feet away from me in this 500-foot long RV, and he generator. And I'm sitting there. And it's getting to be about 11 o'clock and this generator's still going and going and going. All of a sudden, the state highway patrolman pulls in there, and he pulls in there and he goes right over to the guy in the RV and talks to him for a few seconds. They get into an argument. All of a sudden, he kicked the RV out. It was freaking great. And there's no more noise the rest of the night.
Nice and quiet then.
Oh,
Let's
great.
talk.
He just made sure he
How
got out.
many, well, and you are a true old style motorcyclist where you take your home and you put it on the back of your bike. You probably camped probably now more than even Roy Dykeman, a buddy of ours. So let's talk about your motorcycles over the years. You started out with the K75S, which by the way is still running. You gave it to your brother and he
Yes.
still drives it to this day. And then, let me see if I can remember. You had a K1100 RS that was a pretty cool bike. And I don't know what happened.
I put 189,000 miles on that bike.
Really? Wow.
9,000. Yeah.
And then now in the stable right now is you've got a Suzuki V-Strom, which is a 650cc V twin. And you've also got a K1300
GT, yeah.
GT. And of course, that you take that out on, it seems like a special occasions, but you kind of like the lightness of the Suzuki. I know Bob and I rode, once I left Springfield, Missouri this year at the MOA rally, I met up with Bob and we spent about a week over at a Marriott at Cape Girardeau. And, we were with a lot of other guys, but you had your Suzuki. You seem to make that like your primary mode of transportation right now, even though you have a nice new big BMW. So.
Yeah, the V-Strom's a nice bike, but I've been traveling with people that are on 1,000cc, 1,200cc bikes, and I can keep up with them, but when I'm going 85 miles an hour like these guys are going out in the middle of nowhere, I get my gas mileage drop to about 30 miles to a gallon, and it's ridiculous. I'm going to go about 120 miles on a tank of gas. So.
Yeah, when the highway patrol Sergeant Nemastil was talking about them doing 140, I did not want to say anything about whacking that Hayabusa up, but that was in triple digits up I-95 in Florida 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it was way up. It was road racing speed. Like you can't lift your head off the tank kind of thing. But it's kind of fun. But you're right. A bigger leader bike will definitely handle not only the load, but the speed and the distance a lot more comfortable. And it would still maintain maybe 50, 55 miles to a gallon versus when you got to push that 650.
The nice thing about the V-Strom is I can go out to Colorado and I can go up over the mountain passes on the dirt roads. And you can't take those big bikes like the Gold Wings and over those mountain passes. They're too much gravel, too hard to turn. There's some sharp turns up there, and just too much changes in latitude and altitude and direction to take those big bikes up there. So and I can drop the Suzuki and not worried about damaging it like those big like the BMW. It's got crash bars on it, and the BMW doesn't have crash bars, but I love that BMW for going cross country. It's absolutely a great bike.
Yeah. Hey, Larry, I got a question. It's good. This could be a question. It just popped in my head for either you or Bob. Going up in the mountains, and then I know some of the cars I've had that are carbureted. If you went up in high altitude, man, they ran terrible, and you couldn't rejet them. You take as far as a car, you're taking a 4-barrel apart trying to rejet it. In the mountains,
it's air fuel ratio.
Is it the same for? Is it really noticeable on a carbureted motorcycle at 6,000 feet altitude?
I'd let Bob answer that, but most of our bikes nowadays are fuel injected.
Yeah, but
they do a lot better with the air fuel ratio. But Bob, what's your experience? Because you've done a lot of the Colorado Rockies and stuff like that. What is your experience on the bikes that you've ridden up there?
The only bike I ever had a problem with was the K75, and it's got a little spark plug like device when you get up in the high altitudes, and you just take this little cap off the I don't know exactly what it does, but you plug it in.
It's a booster plug.
Yeah, it must make some kind of connection that makes it run better at high altitudes. So I've really never had a problem with the bikes at high altitudes.
I was just wondering about that. It just popped in my head. I was like, I know some of the old carburetor cars, man, he'd struggle up in trying to climb hills and that.
I think within reason, Greg, the fuel injected bikes, their ECUs will have enough latitude to be able to compensate for that. Now the game changer, I think, could be is if you've modified your bike. You've changed the air intake system, or you've changed the exhaust system. So, that thing might have already adjusted to its max. And then if you go up into some high altitude, maybe then you could run into some problems. But most of us, we run stock bikes. They build them from the factory. You don't want to have problems. I mean, if you're going from here to Missouri, you don't want to have a problem. And you could have a problem with something that's aftermarket, that's not designed, or they're probably designed for the bike, but it's not OEM. Yeah. And if it's OEM, you got a good chance of getting some there without a breakdown in that. Hey, Bob, and I don't know how much time we have left, but I thought maybe I could ask Bob, what are we going to do in 2023? What's the big things on the horizon for Bob Schoenfeld?
Well, I go to the Top of the Rockies rally every year, and that's my favorite rally. It's just a fantastic. Colorado's a great place to go. There's a lot of great roads out there, a lot of great ways to get there. And I just look forward to going to Colorado every year. I'm getting to the point in my life where I want to get out of the country and go traveling someplace else, like go to South America or Europe again, or maybe Isle of Man.
Yeah.
I would love to go to see the Isle of Man. I'd like to go with somebody that's done it before. I'd like to go to Alaska. I've never been to Alaska, but I think instead of riding all the way out there, I think I'm going to they have a lot of tours to Alaska. I think I'm going to take a motorcycle tour of Alaska, a motorcycle tour of South America. I'd like to go see Machu Picchu. And again, wow, there's all kinds of motorcycle rides in Ireland. And so anyhow, I'm going to try and start getting out of the country.
Well, that's going to require a bunch of shots, virus shots and things like that. You don't care.
Well, I don't care about the shot. That doesn't worry me. You know what? You can't take it with you. Yeah. That's the way you got to look at things. You can't take it with you, and the longer you sit around on your butt, the older you're going to get, and the slower you're going to get. So.
And you know what? There's the newest saying going around now: tomorrow isn't given. And when we start to get up to where we are now, that's true. So I felt bad that the year that I had planned kind of didn't really work out, except for the fun trip with you and Kenny to Missouri and back. Ungodly hot, but still fun. And who could ever forget us going to the home of Superman over in Illinois there. What was that?
Metropolis.
What a blast. I bought one of those little Green Lantern guys, and I attached them to the one of the bags on my bike. So I look down at him every once in a while. I'm riding it, and it makes me think of Metropolis. And what a fun thing to do. That town really kind of creates that whole thing and perpetuates it. And that's just one of the fun things. One of the things I've done is I've gone to Barnes and Noble, and I bought a book called Oddities in Ohio. And I'm going to start traveling to different things. It's literally not that far away. I've got grandkids, and the grandson's really starting to grow in sports and stuff. So I really try not to miss many of his games, if at all. But I know that I can jet away on a Friday morning, and I can come back on a Sunday night, and I can do that many, many times throughout the summer. So I'm looking to do stuff like that. I'd love to go to the Isle of Man. I did know a couple of people that have bikes stored over there that I might be able to hook you up with. So,
I got a question for Larry. For the book Oddities in Ohio, was your picture in it? Sorry, I had to get that one in.
Hey, well, I don't know. Could be.
I'm sorry. We gotta have some fun on this show. Bob, I got a question for you, and I ask a lot of people this on the motorcycle end. There's got to be one brutal ride that you had that you just look back on that was so bad, it was so miserable. There has to be one, because I was trying to think. We had a guest on here, Larry, he broke down, and it was just, the story he told was so miserable. I was miserable sitting here listening to it. There's gotta be
Yeah.
one, there's gotta be one that sticks out in your head with all your years of riding a motorcycle.
Well, it has more to do with weather than actually a brutal ride. I went to a motorcycle. I was living in Dallas at the time, and went to a rally in Missouri called the Falling Leaf Rally.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I left on Sunday morning, and I didn't get 30 miles west of Potosi, Missouri, and I ran into rain.
Ugh.
And it rained the entire ride back to Dallas. I mean, it was at least 9 hours of rain. And there
Oh,
was
God.
raining so hard, the cars were pulled off the road. And when the cars start pulling off the road, and you're riding on a motorcycle, it's scary because they can't see you. If you pull off the road, you almost have to find someplace. It's almost impossible when you're out in the middle of nowhere to find some place to pull off the road and get shelter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I rode in the rain for 9 hours, I guarantee it. And I got soaked to the bone. But once I got to Oklahoma City, north of Dallas, it stopped raining, and I rode the rest of the way. By the time I got to Dallas, I was dry.
Yeah.
So it has more to do with the weather than anything. Last summer, I rode from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Lodi, Ohio in the rain. I was soaked to the bone.
Oh,
I got off the bike and walked into the gas station. I got gas, walked in the gas station to use the restroom. And I'm standing there. I got a cold drink, and I'm standing there.
cold drink in the rain.
Puddle of water under me, like 3 feet around, and the people are looking at me. Doesn't this dummy know how to get out of the rain?
Yeah.
Again, it's more the weather that bothers me than anything. So,
Yeah,
And you know what? I think we would all say that ride motorcycles a lot. If you don't ride in rain in Ohio, you probably don't ride much. But I'd rather ride in the rain any day than high wind. High wind for me personally is a game changer. When I went last year down to, North Carolina for the RA rally, Bob, that I met you down there. The wind was so high up here that I actually had to tuck behind a semi because it was coming head on, which I would prefer anyways, but it was so bad that it would just upset the bike. I mean, you'd have to really grip the bars, which I don't like to do because it fatigues you. And I tucked right up behind the truck. I felt bad because I'm sure the semi guy couldn't see me, but I come right up on the corner of him and just stayed there, had him block the wind, and probably went almost all the way down 77 that way until I got to where it quit being windy. But wind is for me a game changer in motorcycling. And that's when I start to think about, especially with us when we had those fairing bikes, you could be being blown literally at almost a 45-degree angle. And the thing that's bad is that wind's going to stop. And then you got to almost simultaneously correct and get the bike back upright. It's just big problems. So, but I can appreciate that. One last thing, and I guess I want to get on a soapbox here because I know you do too, but we wear all the gear all the time. When we say we wear the gear, we wear good helmets, good jackets, good riding pants, good gloves. Riding motorcycles is a risky business, and even more so with distracted driving. And if you get punted or you make a mistake or somebody turns in front of you or a deer jumps out or a multitude of things that could cause you to come off the bike, you want to have a chance to live. You want to have a chance not to have skin grafts and a bunch of other horrific things that can happen. So wear all the gear. Bob, I know you do.
I've been down 3 times, and I destroyed my helmet all 3 times. So if I didn't have a helmet on, I'd be dead. And
That's
I
why
also
you-
hit
Or dumber.
a deer. I hit a deer going 80 miles an hour north of Cincinnati.
Yeah,
And I hit
wow.
another one going about 35. I
Yeah.
killed the deer both times, so.
that's why we wear the equipment, huh?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good thing I was on a big heavy bike when I hit that deer because it just knocked me.
Probably
Hey,
saved
Bob.
your life.
Hey, Bob,
yeah.
I got a rain story for you too. When I was in the Navy, when I was a young chap at 21, I was coming home from Mississippi and on my Sportster, my XLCH, and I hit the outskirts of a hurricane. And
Oh.
man, I just rode the whole day like that. I had a rain suit on, it just blew apart. And at the time I was engaged to a gal, and I was home. I was determined to get home to her, and I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
Oh.
It wasn't fun. Oh God, it's going 60, 70 miles an hour in the rain like that. Yikes.
Well, you know what? We're running out of time. So, Bob, I wanted to thank you for joining us. Love the story.
Excellent.
We'd love to have you back as well. And we
Hey,
want
Bob,
to thank. Go
Bob,
ahead.
you know, he's the last guest of this year. You know, the 2022
Oh.
season. Or yeah, you're our last guest, bud.
Yeah.
Does he
Send
get a
him one of
prize?
those hats.
Does he get a prize?
Yeah, one of those hats you gave us to wear today.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.